we are live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are live now.
Good evening and warm welcome to the fourth webinar of Healthy Life Initiative of OrthoTV. I am Dr. Dhiren Ganjwala, a pediatric orthopedic surgeon, along with my friend and a colleague, Dr. Tushar Agarwal, again a pediatric orthopedic surgeon from Mumbai. We will be hosting this event. We welcome Dr. Ashok, Shyam, and Dr. Shefali Batra, who are going to be the expert of this session. The first question is like, why such session? When we are talking of our health, emotion or the emotional fitness does not come under the purview of many. Most of us consider health as a physical fitness. We consider body mass index, the lipid profile, or at the most, we look at the blood report or what is our diabetes status. But health is something more than that. And emotional health or emotional fitness is one of the important components of that. And why this webinar? To give you that understanding, let me give you a comparison. Suppose you are like a fitness freak. You want to manage your physical fitness. And for that, you decide to go for a morning walk. To improve your heart rate, you are walking briskly. And then something happened and you fall down. You had an abrasion on the knee joint. What will you do in that case? Simple. You will come home, you will clean the wound, and then you will dress the wound. The reason we are doing like that is simply because we know that if we don't take care of the wound, it may get infected and then it may create a problem. Similarly, suppose tomorrow morning when we get up and we had a headache, what will we do? If headache is more, we will take a tablet because we know that if you don't take care of the headache, then it may ruin your day. But we are very sure and we are competent when it comes to a physical problem. But when it comes to an emotional problem, we consider that it is normal, it's not a significant one, and with time it will settle down. The major difference between physical illness and the emotional problem is that emotional problem not only affect you, but almost everyone surrounding you are also affected with your problem. And that is the reason why we are going or we are having this webinar and this topic of emotional fitness as the today's topic. Before I hand over to Dr. Tushar for introduction of the expert, I would like to have a small disclaimer. The information which we will provide in this webinar is for educational purpose only. It is not intended to substitute the professional medical advice. The speaker and OrthoTV disclaim responsibility for any adverse effect that may result from the use of or application of the information. So with that short introduction about the topic, I hand over to Dr. Tushar for the introduction of our speaker. Over to you, Tushar. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening all, and thank you very much, Dr. Dhiren, for having me on this webinar. I have been with you guys on OrthoTV Monday Motivation doing similar kind of work, and sir saw Dr. Shefali Batra and he felt very keen that a larger audience should listen to her. And it has been our great fortune that she has come out with a book which is titled, Why Do I Feel So Sad? And actually the title is such that after reading the book, you can actually stop feeling sad. Dr. Shefali Batra is an IR alumni and has got great, she is a senior psychiatrist with very, very keen interest in counseling therapy. She is not she is not like the keen drug therapy person. And her book, which has come out recently over the last month, we've already introduced the book on OrthoTV, is divided into 4 sections mainly. The first section will explain why you're feeling the symptoms of ill health and what are you feeling, actually to define exactly what are you feeling. The second section would equip you with the techniques. Once you have understood what you're feeling, then the techniques to deal with it. The third section is to start making you feel better. And the fourth section is to actually start perceiving and start sort of monitoring how your health is improving. Few takeaways from what I had got from our last webinar with Dr. Shefali. One was, unlike the physical health or the muscle mass which you build up, and you tend to lose the muscle mass once you stop doing your gym activities. She said And have I understood correctly? Please correct me if you feel I was wrong. She said that once you work on your mental health, it stays with you much longer than what a physical health activity is. So it's very, very important for us to continuously work on our mental health, because the effects of it last subsequently longer and in a more permanent way. Second very interesting thing she had told us about, I kind of mix up the lingo because I associate with something else, was the ABCDE of this counseling therapy. And that's like
REBT. It's called REBT, Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy. And like we want to talk of simple ABCDE, but yes, you please let's see whether you understood it right. I won't say it.
So we have a series of adverse events which are happening to us, or perceived adverse event, and we approach them with a certain behavior or belief, and therefore we have a certain consequence which we may not like. The adverse event continue to barrage us. What is in our control is our belief about those adverse events and our behavior. The moment we change the B, the consequence starts changing, and we can then, what was the D, madam?
So actually you kind of gave the answer out in the ABC because you shortened it, quick procedure. So A is what we call the activating experience. I won't even call it adverse event. We call it adverse event, but it's just an event. So we call it an activator. It's not good or bad by itself, but it's an activator. So A is the activating experience. B is the belief you have about that experience. C is the consequence, which is usually an emotional consequence of feeling bad, sad, angry, upset, low, frustrated. Now, what you need to do is realize that normally we think that the A leads to the C. This event happened and I felt sad. So that's what activating experience activated my sadness. No, there's a B in the middle. You believed something. When I lost my job, I felt depressed. When I didn't get 97%, I felt really sad. When my boyfriend or partner broke up with me, I felt really low. But it's the B. If the person breaks up with you, you have to believe that maybe this person wasn't the right one for you. Or when you didn't do well, you have to believe that I tried my best and I still did good. Or when something bad happened and I lost a job, yes, this is a bad time, but maybe there's something better out there for me. So based on the B, you will have a C. The A does not cause a C. The activating experience activates actually the belief system and not the consequence. So we just forget the belief. We just say, I don't know, this happened and so I'm sad. My friend didn't call me for the party and so I'm sad. So what we need to do is D, dispute the B, because the B or the belief is irrational. So we need to dispute the B, and then we E, enjoy the effect of the rational belief. So the idea, rational emotive behavior therapy, REBT, is to rationalize with the belief system, convert them into positive beliefs, and so we will obviously feel positive emotions. And that's actually the premise of this book. This book is teaching you the cognitive behavior therapy principles, teaching you your thinking biases, how you take things personally, how you see things in black and white, how you use the word should a lot. This should be like this, that should be like that. He should be like that, I should be the best. The word should makes us feel quite negative. So I introduce all the B's which are dysfunctional, and then I help you challenge those irrational beliefs so that you can feel the right consequences. So it says, yes, sad. I mean, of course, the book would target anxiety, it would target stress, because it's basically just talking about our brain wiring and our thinking. That's why the title of this webinar, Rewire Your Brain, for positivity, so that we are just tuned. It's like once you fine tune the FM, in the olden days when we're trying to get the frequency right, once it's set, it's set. It doesn't really change because we fixed it. Likewise, when we fine tune our brain, in a couple, you fine tune yourself to the preferences of your partner, you will be smooth. It'll be a good marriage. You fine tune yourself to your work situation. Little flexibility, yes, we will have. But it's that tuning. And that's why I say once you fine tune, you will listen to good music and not noise. That's the idea and the premise of the book, to fine tune your thinking.
So how easy or difficult it is for somebody who is feeling disturbed to actually perceive all this. So let me give an example. So I did the webinar with you, and all the time after that, for quite a few days, I would keep telling my fellow, I have a junior colleague, that let's check our thoughts, let's check our thoughts. Let's redo our thinking. And I stopped doing it after a few days. So what I wish to ask is, how does it become more sustained?
So have you heard of the
And it was effective. And it was effective, right? So
do you know the grades of competency that we establish? You're a surgeon. Okay, I am far from surgery. I did very well in the surgery as a subject, but no, I don't do that precise surgical work. But for you, how does surgery seem? Does it seem pretty easy, pretty natural? Like, you know what you have to do. Do you get really worked up or anxious that you're going to do something wrong in your surgical procedure? I mean, if it is new and it is different, I get it. It would be different. But routine work after all these years, do you find it that hard?
no, I don't find it hard, but I'm sure different people get different levels of
You. I'm talking about you because you just told me that you were watching your thoughts, but then suddenly you realized that you drifted into an old pattern of not watching your thoughts.
I stopped watching my thoughts.
Stopped watching your thoughts. So that's where I wanted to ask you, so that there are degrees of competence. So there is something called, I go from lower level to higher level. Unconscious incompetence. You don't know that you don't know. Conscious incompetence. I now know that I don't know.
I was at that level.
Conscious competence. Now I'm trying really hard and being mindful and watching my thoughts. And then you get to the level of unconscious competence, which is actualization. So you unconsciously have become so mindful that you don't need to consciously tell that fellow that, listen, boss, let you and me monitor our thoughts. You become an automatic monitor.
Sir wants to ask a question.
I can't hear Dr. Dhiren.
Yeah, sorry, I was on a mute mode. The question is like, this theory is really good. But the point which I always think is, like, when someone is drowning, and if you teach them how to swim, then it's not the right time. The right time is to learn swimming before you jump into the water.
And that is why this book is not meant for people who are severely, seriously depressed. You know, when a person comes to me in a panic attack, I can't tell them to take deep breaths. You cannot even breathe. In a panic attack, we make them breathe into a paper bag because of the CO2 washout. You know, it's a completely different. That is why when someone's drowning, you can't teach them how to swim. And this, you know, the difference between a vaccine and a medicine. I call a book like this, Changing Your Thinking, is like a vaccine. It will prevent you from getting sad and letting your everyday sadness and blues progress to depression. And so on an everyday basis, if you become more mindful, at least first realize that I wasn't even being mindful. That was like I was unconsciously incompetent. Now I realize I'm not being mindful. That means I'm consciously incompetent. It's still incompetence, but at least I'm aware about it. Gradually, for a very, very long time, most of us stay in the stage of conscious competence. That I have to be mindful because naturally, you know, we have to be consciously competent about so much. I mean, you guys do surgeries, you know, since so many years, but you won't just say, "Hum मैं आँख बंद करके surgery कर लूँगा." You will always keep that eye open. So that would be conscious competence, which is also good, and a lot of us stay there. But to be at a nirvana level of unconscious competence, you don't even know how calm you are and how untouched you are by the worries and woes of life and of existence. That is when someone says, oh, you had this bad mishap and you didn't even react. Oh, really? But it wasn't such a big deal. People will say, oh, your friend spoke to you rudely and you didn't even react. Oh, I didn't even think it was rude because that person's not part of my journey. Why should I worry about what the person said? So that in many ways is a degree of unconscious competence where you're already letting the painful processes pass you by. And we call it psychological flexibility, actually. Imagine you're standing in front of a stream, a nice stream is flowing, and you just watch and you keep your field of vision towards, right in front of your eyes. So a little leaf is passing by on the stream. It comes and then it goes. Then another leaf comes, there's a little froggy on it. You see it, it goes. There's some bunch of flowers that got into the stream from somewhere and they go. Some light pebbles are also coming and they're going. You watch it, you let it pass. You watch it, you let it pass. That is called psychological flexibility, that I enter the state, I see, oh, such a cute froggy, and then it's gone. And it's gone from my mind and it's gone in a way from my life. So you can keep the positive if it makes you feel good. But sometimes even holding on to positive is not so great because I'm holding on to that good time and I can't let go of it. The good time came, you enjoyed it, let it pass. The bad time came, it's looking really bad, but let it pass. Because when you let everything pass, you will be able to make the most of every moment that you have. So that is what we mean by psychological flexibility. That is a tenet of mindfulness. So a lot of people are, what is mindfulness? What is mindfulness? Yeah, mindful, mindless. Yeah, I am mindful. It's just a term, but no, these are the core tenets of mindfulness. That you be aware of what's happening with you.
It's acceptance and commitment therapy is also the
Yes,
same,
absolutely.
right?
It's a very mindfulness oriented. In fact, ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, it's got a very Buddhism oriented philosophy, which is rooted in,
Precisely what you told about the stream and the.
yes.
Yes,
There
sir.
are so many theories. They all lead us to the same path of revelation in a
Sir, you
way.
wanted to say something?
So I was
Yeah.
saying,
So the another question or the confusion I have is like what you said is like emotional, uh, like
flexibility.
bluntness, or yeah, you are not responding to the situation. How that is different from what they call it in the Gita, Sthita Prajna. So is it the
Correct.
same thing or they are different?
No, Sthita Pragya is different. So when we say Sthita Pragya, it means steadfastness of mind. But it doesn't mean don't react. That means a person in coma is also not reacting. But I don't mean that get into a coma. You watch it, you observe it, you absorb it, you process it, and then don't react to it. So there's one way, what you call detachment. I'm detached from the world. I won't eat any food. I'll give up everything. In today's world, are we that detached? I think I can eat a chocolate pastry or a caramel pudding that I really like. Once in a way I will eat it, but I won't get attached to it. That I'm happy when I eat it, but I'm really upset that my favorite pudding is over. My friend gave me a beautiful box of chocolates and they were yummy, and then it got over. But I'm fine enjoying the chocolate and I'm fine when the chocolate is over too. Maybe some other day I'll get it, but I'm not so upset. Like the child who enjoys the toy but cries when you take the toy away. Or you're really happy in your relationship, but you're really sad when the relationship is over. Maybe that time was up. So that is what Sthita Pragya means. It doesn't mean being in a coma and not reacting. It means observing, absorbing, assimilating, digesting, processing, and even maybe getting rid of it, and still your mind is steadfast. You don't get too excited when it's good and you don't feel too bad when it's negative. That is the
So tell me
philosophy.
something. Some people are naturally equipped to handle it, and some people are on the other extreme who have to be really
That
casual into it,
is,
or
so see, Dr. Tushar, when we're born, all children are just the same, right? You don't know who is going to react badly, who is going to be depressed, who's going to be anxious. It's just all a bunch of newborn babies in front of you. It is their life experiences which shape them and which give their life that particular meaning that in fact, they give meaning to their own life. Now we are coming to existential
so
theory of,
so, so there are two things: genetics and epigenetics, right? So how much do you think this ability to handle stress is genetic and how much of it is epigenetic?
So epigenetic is even above, epigenetics, we're trying to say that, uh, so genetics in one way, we are,
Born with an ability to handle stress.
you think
Or to feel
I
stress.
am not
Or
sure.
I
we
would put it in
actually
a
are.
different way. Is it natural or nurture?
Nature versus nurture. So with nature and nurture, I think that nurture transforms our nature. The life experiences, because when you say nature, you are making it rigid. And today is a world of neuroplasticity. Today is a world of pliability. This is a world of flexibility. So if you're not going to bend, you're going to break. That means everything I would say is the way you nurture yourself. People are born overweight with overweight parents, and then we say that the leptin gene, and then we go on and on about nature and genetics. But I still think if you really work towards it, you will lose weight. So I think it's not right to just say, this is who I am. I always react like this. I have been angry since childhood and I tend to overreact and I didn't ever get that love. So I'm always going to be greedy. No, if we learn, we can change. So I think we can leave genetics aside and we can focus on neuroplasticity, and with every single day we can learn something new. I remember mentioning this.
Precisely what she means is change our belief, right? About the
Change your belief system, because your neurons will change when your belief changes. I had spoken at a biological conference, a conference of biological psychiatry, on how CBT changes the brain. We talk of medication changing the neurons, but here cognitive therapy is as chemically influential. We are chemically run electrical creatures, right? What are we? We are nothing but a bunch of positive and negative charges in the billions of cells in our body. So chemically run electrical machines that we are, it is our everyday interactions and experiences which are contributing to this. Why is it that the more happy things you do, you and I know dopamine is being released? Where's it coming from? Somehow our body is choosing to pick all the ingredients from all the little food that we eat, or a lot of food that we eat, and it converts it because we want more dopamine. So when you do more happy things, you have more dopamine. When you're with people and with a lot of people that you love, more oxytocin. So we are auto-generating all of this, right? It's not that we're pumping oxytocin in to feel the love. Oxytocin is the new love chemical. Dopamine is the reward chemical. So we generate these things by the way we think. That is what neuroplasticity is. So we no longer say, oh, my brain doesn't have dopamine, so I'm depressed. You start thinking positive, your dopamine neurons will start firing more, faster, and then you will start feeling happier. But we need to realize that.
One of the chapters which she has written is called the thinking in black and white.
Black
So
and
as
white.
I understood from there, what she's saying is that we are very tuned to thinking in absolute. If this is not good, then it is bad. It is okay for something which we purchase, but it's not okay when we are handling human behavior or our own behavior.
Correct.
So either others' behavior towards us or our behavior towards any situation. So if it was not good, so there are many shades of gray, I guess, in the whole.
Between black and white, there are
many
shades of gray based on the degree of pixelation that you're going to.
So not good is
not always bad.
Bad, yeah.
Not perfect is, so there is a chapter called Beat Perfection if you want to beat dejection. So I am personally very particular. I mean, I would call myself a perfectionist, but there's something called over perfectionism, where beyond, it's almost like an obsessive personality. So beyond the point of relevance, your perfection is not working. But who decides that line? Because I am not asking the world to be imperfect. I am not asking people to be substandard. I am not asking children to not study and not get 100% in the examination. But I'm only saying that if you get a 97, it is not the end of the world. 97 motivates you to try harder. 97 motivates you to figure out where you went wrong. Maybe not this exam, maybe now life will go on, but the next time in life, you will not make that mistake. That is fine. Making mistakes is fine. Learning from mistakes is fine. But believing that I am absolutely not worth it because I made a mistake. That is not fine. So it's also the way you see it, because cognitive principles, a lot of people could actually misinterpret them. That, oh, I don't have to be perfect. Oh, I don't have to take anything personally. That means anything that somebody says, I will take the attacks on me. No, there is a degree till, after which you protect yourself. Yes, self-protection is allowed. I say, people like don't take labels, but somewhere a little bit of using an adjective, for example. There's a chapter that says use adjectives that define and not labels that malign. So if you say that, for a lady who's, I've given the example in the book, for a lady, let's say it's a lady doctor who doesn't have as much time for her children, and she says, I'm a horrible mother. Now, horrible makes you feel really low. But if you say, I'm a really busy mother, I need to make more time for my children, versus saying I'm a horrible mother and my kids are just going to grow up dysfunctional because I don't have time for them. So the words that come out of your mouth and go into our own ears have the biggest effect on your brain. It's not the words of others. People talk a lot. It's the words that you say which get into your ears and affect your head, which make a difference. So the self-talk and your internal narrative is very important.
One topic which I had mentioned that we'll discuss today is topic of success definition for ourselves, feeling a sense of competition and occasionally feeling a sense of envy. How do you guide people on how to sort of define your success, deal with the competition that you feel, and prevent from feeling envy? Yeah.
So I think all the three concepts.
I'm sure in all specialties of medicine, people must be feeling at different.
Or everywhere in the life also.
In life, in everything, what is the definition of success? My cake was a success. My dish was a success. Someone's movie was a success.
So the big problem is that getting into orthopedics was a very successful venture. Clearing the exam was very successful. But the moment you exit, and then you feel now you've got a whole new world to overcome, and then you start feeling that you don't really have the skill sets which are required, or at some point of time you will start feeling that the skill sets have now got exhausted and I'm plateauing. So correct. What happens then?
So you've called it success. I actually wrote an article on happiness, which talks about the happiness graph. Here we're talking success graph. So we change our goals. Our goals have to change. There is, that's again the journey versus destination, argument, that what matters, the journey or the destination. Because completing an MD or an MS is a destination. But then after that, again, you're left with, I remember the day psychiatry got over, I still have a picturesque, imaginative, I have that screenshot in my mind on which desk I was sitting, and I was just frozen because I was so scared. It was so much fun being in KEM and doing that residency and juniors and seniors and all of that. And suddenly there's no more studies anymore. Now you are an adult. Now you've got to go out there in the world of sharks. What are you going to do? It seems like you topped psychiatry and you're successful. No, that was not success. That was my most fearsome moment. I didn't feel it to be success. So I think it's more of a perception. And if you know the difference between journey and destination, and you know where you're supposed to focus on, and if you decide that I'm going to focus on my journey, so success is never an official part of that journey, because every little milestone that you cross in your journey actually is success. So then you would say, I have succeeded at every step, instead of saying that I reached a certain point and then I succeeded. Now, when there's a very specific target.
So you are saying that you should celebrate your micro successes.
You should, we call it micro successes, yes. Yeah. So instead of the final destination, what is the ultimate final destination of your existence? What is it?
Mine.
Anybody's final destination. We all have the same final destination.
To be happy.
No, the ultimate destination in life, it is actually death.
Yes.
That is the final destination, and we aren't actually waiting for it. So when we talk destination, think about your final destination, and then you say, oh, that final destination I don't want. That means what you really want is those mini destinations along the way. So I think the journey itself is the destination, and the multiple destinations are the journey. Basically, if your journey and destination are the same, that would be the perfect life and the perfect existence. And there, coming to the concept of competition, that what is competition? Like, as doctors, that person sees so many patients in a day, I see so many patients in a day. Or no, I could be doing charity and I could be seeing 100 patients in a day. Or that person makes so much money in a day and I make so much money in a day. He has so many properties and I have so many properties. Competition, the moment you get into a competitive mindset, there are again two ways. The healthy competition says, oh, this person's running really fast. I should also run really fast because it's good for health. I don't have to run really fast because I want to beat him. The question is, what do I get after beating him? There I'm again looking for some success. I'm looking, but what is that success? The medal? What does a medal do? Okay, there's a prize, maybe $1 million. Eventually, it's money. I get it. But then there are other people out there making $1 million or way more by making movies or many different professions that exist. So I think everything is a definition. What is your success definition? Who are you competing with? I think the best competition is with yourself. Be a better version of yourself. Or if you were fine some time ago, or you were slim some time ago, then be that version. If you were fitter, we're only getting old. Yeah, I know my knees hurt. So I'm just wondering, oh my God, at once upon a time, I could do so much more. So I want to get back to where I was. That should be my competition. I don't have to be like the person who's the fastest bicyclist or this friend who is doing this much of exercise or spending how many hours in the gym. Because
So knowing about it and being that kind of a person, how does it happen? Means we know that we don't need to compete with others and we need to compete with ourselves.
and that's your level of conscious competence that you
So
have.
I'll make a frank admittance. You know what happens if you give a very clear-cut example, just for the sake of examples. This Sunday, I was attending the Bombay Orthopaedic Society meeting, which is at KM, right? I was sitting on the 50th bench, 50th row, and I was just thinking I'm 52 years old and I'm still sitting on the 50th row. You know, and I'm not really making any major comments or contributing to the meeting. So when is it that I'm going to be contributing to an academic meeting? So, okay, so this is the example which just comes to my mind.
That I'm not successful, that I am
Yeah, I mean, now I come back and I'm seeing 65 patients and I'm doing 3 or 4 surgeries in a day. So in this definition, yeah, I'm good. Means it's fair enough. But in that definition,
who made that definition? Who
No,
makes that definition?
I don't know. See, there are certain definitions which just come into your mind. Means nobody is bringing
No,
it in.
but trust me, they don't just come into your mind. They come from somewhere. Now, what if you thought that this person who seems so flashy and so up there, now if you realize that maybe that person is not making any money, but I just told you, seeing 100 free patients in a day versus charging X amount for those 100 patients, so making X amount of money, versus one person who sees only one patient a day and it's just a high-end, high-class. So who do you call successful? Who do you envy?
Yeah, so there are so many varieties of successes, means.
Correct. And so
And
I
they
think
don't,
the
and
biggest,
they have a little overlap with each other. And
but what matters to you? That is the most important question, that you see that really rich person who is really struggling with his taxes and who's really struggling with some litigation issue over something or some tax evasion or something like that. So would you envy that? Or would you envy the person who's really worried because of all the multiple businesses that he has, he doesn't really have time to enjoy? Then you start comparing yourself that I have enough time to enjoy. Or someone tells you, oh, I'm so busy, I just haven't slept well in such a long time. So then you say, oh, I envy him. So I envy him for his money, but I don't envy him for his sleep. And I envy that he's got all that money, but I don't envy the fact that he's actually got gastric ulcers because of his stress. So which part? And then we go to that childhood story that if everybody was given, all their worries were put into a hat, which one would you pick? You would just pick your own worries because you would just think
Right.
that mine are they're just fine.
I'm still like, at least I'm familiar with it. It's like, we used to have these surgical description. You have to describe a surgery and you have to pick up a note. And if you could actually see the surgery, you don't mind picking it up. At least there is no shock and surprise. So I picked up colostomy, I remember, in the MBBS exam. So, sir wanted to ask some questions, which were specific to the relatively, I would say, the relatively more senior. So what we wanted to do is that in this whole, we expect some young guys to be listening to us, some middle-aged guys and some relatively senior orthopedic surgeons. So sir wanted to ask some questions, probably more contextual to a senior orthopedic surgeon.
Sure.
Yeah. So basically, like when we look at the medical profession, there are two type of doctors. The one is in a private practice, and where usually they continue their practice for like till the age of 70 or sometimes beyond that.
Yeah.
And then there is another group of people, those who are in a full-time job, and they have to retire at 65 or at a fixed age. So once they retire, they feel something like a vacuum.
In spite of being mentally and physically fit.
Yeah. So mentally and physically they are fit, but because of the law of the age, like they have to retire, because the rule is say that you can't practice beyond 65. So at this particular age or stage of life, they feel that they are completely out of the action, or probably they may have a power one day, and soon after the retirement, they are without power. Some head of the department all of a sudden becomes a normal person.
A normal person, yes.
So these things are going to happen to everyone. So what
Sooner
are
or
your
the president of the United States and the prime minister?
exactly? Yeah. So they also retire. Right?
When you step down, it's not even retire after 5 years of your tenure. Yes, we'll still say President Barack Obama, and we'll talk, with respect. But the point is, the power is while you're on the seat. So the question again is your own perception, right? What about the fashion model, or what about the Miss India who's overweight today and who has wrinkled skin because she's 75 years old? What do you define here? Again, I think we go to the definition of success, that you suddenly don't feel worthy enough. You see, we all worry about age. At my age, I am looking at people 20 years younger than me. I'm like, oh my God, why am I so old? And imagine me growing 20 years older. I would even say I wish I was, just 20 years younger, leave alone 40. So it's always that race that we're running. And I call it a rat race because you're running against yourself in certain ways. And where is that getting you? There was this concept put forth by Erik Erikson, who saw our development across the lifespan. And in old age, what he calls is ego integrity versus despair. So when you've crossed that certain seniority and that old age, the fact that you're feeling insecure, it means that that integrity of your ego is not there. By ego, I don't mean the egoistic, arrogant ego. I mean the sense of the self. So if you have not established a sense of worthiness, that I was a really accomplished doctor. I mean, I still am that doctor. I am an accomplished doctor. Just because I ceased to be the head of the department, it doesn't mean that I am now useless. Because my purpose was to be there for that point in time, and I did a really good job. And maybe you got 7 trophies and 7, but you don't have to essentially know that that's the only thing that makes you feel good about yourself. When you say ego integrity, you feel full and complete within yourself. You can do gardening. Maybe you don't have time all your life to do it. I mean, that choice, you have to make a better choice and a right choice. I know surgeons who've had developed Parkinson's, their hands have tremors, trigger fingers, fine, those we get operated. But after a certain point, you are going to lose some knack of yours. And that's okay. What we feel is that invincibility. If you think you are invincible, no, nobody is invincible. Everybody loses their sense of power at some point or the other. And age, nobody can fight. You can use Botox and look different, but the insides are not going to change. You'll have a knee replacement or your knee is brand new. No, but something is still ongoing. You'll get a pacemaker at some point, you do a bypass surgery at some point. You can't replace everything. You cannot fight age. What would be better is to welcome it, embrace it, and live a good life for as long as destined for you. But that's where at some point you let go. If you keep holding on, nothing stays in your hand, like sand, like water. You just have to let it go. And that's what, I mean, I would wish, I don't know, I'm not reached that classic old age yet, though I think I'm old. But
So Dr. Shefali, how to come from theory to practical? Means this is you really explained it very beautifully. The book
for
explains
ego
it.
integrity.
No, how do actually you become that? Means how you become that nice guy who never feels bad, who doesn't feel any competition is there, and who never feels envious, who ages gracefully, and who's always so nice, and
Yes.
you know what, I'll tell you one
You
thing.
suddenly make it sound very hard.
And I'll tell you one thing. We are all nice in parts, and there are certain parts where we find it very difficult to be nice. I'll
Yeah,
give you
like
an
in
example.
certain
Let me give you an
situations.
example. Again, a contextual example. So, a surgical colleague asked me, "अरे तू fire का क्या कर रहा है तेरे hospital में?" तो मैं बोला नहीं, there is no problem. I am nice to them. They are nice to me. They are our working partners. Means I have come in some way with the BMC fire. So I am nice on that. But certain other aspects of practice may disturb me so much more. So how do you become this universally nice sort of person who just never gets disturbed? Will it
No.
The
ever happen,
same.
or is it such a utopian situation that
And something similar to that, like what you said is the one part of the practice. The another part is almost the similar ground. The anxiety is the another thing which is probably affecting a lot of us. The anxiety means not a issue which is there, but we give such a large shape to that. It may be a small problem, but like our mind starts giving it such a big issue.
That also
she
is
has written a book called chapter called Catastrophizing.
Yeah,
catastrophizing. I
exactly,
was just
exactly.
saying that.
Precisely. One chapter is on
Catastrophizing.
generalization and one chapter on catastrophe. Means
Catastrophization. So that is catastrophic thinking, in which you think that everything is like the end of the world, But the point is, it is never the end of the world. If it was the end of the world, then I think again it would be celebration time, because we all would go down together. So we don't have to worry, because if the world is ending, it's all going down. It's not just you. So no envy, no jealousy as to who is going to survive. But every time we think it's the end of the world, it's not. COVID also came and the world didn't end. So world wars have happened and the world hasn't ended. So I think we are going to survive. So we don't have to worry about this end of the world situation. But at the same time, the stock market is down and we are worried. And suddenly the patient inventory is down and we are worried. And there's some new tax law. Suddenly doctors have to pay GST. And then I'm sure we'll all be worried. And all of that will go on. But it's not, the problem is not the real problem. It's your reaction to the problem, which is really the problem. So, remember that quote, it's not the problem, which is the problem, it's your reaction to it, which is. So how you
it's
react
the
to the
belief
problem.
and behavior. I think it's all the belief and behavior.
But your
Ultimately,
behavior
after your
depends on
entire talk, I feel that's it, right? You just change
it's
your
how you
belief.
see it, how you see it, which glasses you're wearing and which color the shade is appearing to you. Because, and I don't say it's easy. When I think of Gautam Buddha, I don't think I could reach that level of nirvana. And I'm not sure I even want to reach that nothing touches me. Dr. Tushar, you said that we should not be disturbed by anything. Be disturbed. Be disturbed when you hear about sexual crime. Be disturbed when we hear about war. And be disturbed when we hear about kids who don't get food to eat. But after that disturbance, that semi-disturbed feeling, that awareness, do something to change that. Do something to empower every girl child around you. Do something to spread positive education to growing
So
children.
what you are saying is notice your cause of disturbance and take a positive action.
Absolutely.
In your own capacity.
In your capacity, in your best capacity.
And the one problem which I have faced even with myself, that all these anxiety related issues, they get exacerbated in the night. So what is the reason for that?
So, your besides the brain chemicals or the, the neurohormones and neurochemicals, we even know the basic cortisol, the thyroid hormone, the melatonin. It all changes in different times of the day. Plus the fatigue that you endure through the course of the day, the series of events. What sleep does is it kind of rewires you. It kind of removes certain memories. Something you feel miserable about today, tomorrow morning, you don't feel so bad about it. It always happens to all of us. And then, of course, there might be something that you feel worse about because tomorrow is the day. So tomorrow is the big, never done before surgery. So you're more anxious tomorrow, but that's different. What I'm really talking about is when you give it time, time does heal. Time is a healer. When we lose a member of our family, when we lose a certain degree of our respect, or we've lost out on some patients because a new clinic opened in the neighborhood, after a certain period in time you kind of get used to it. So that acclimatization happens. Give yourself that time to acclimatize. In psychological theory we call it habituation. I mean, if you say that I'm afraid of spiders, and if cockroaches, I don't know, you're living in a room where there are cockroaches, touch wood, I don't like cockroaches, we don't have cockroaches these days, but I'm just saying, when you're living on a farmhouse, you'll kind of get acclimatized to insects. You can't be on a farm without insects, right? So there you won't complain. But if you're in a 5-star hotel and you see a little insect flying, you'll obviously complain. So when you give yourself that chance to acclimatize to anything new or different, which is uncomfortable, you will realize that your brain is getting sensitized and the same stressor is not seeming stressful anymore. I'm not saying that we live well. Those who live on the border and hear gunshots all the time, don't overreact to the gunshots. You and me will definitely react to a gunshot or a bombing sound.
I think what Dr. Dhiren meant was, sorry to interrupt, is that anxiety from situations which need not necessarily cause anxiety. And to be in a state of chronic anxiety, right, sir? That's what you sort of meant.
So let me give you an example.
You are like a little charged up all the time. And I would like to give an example. Actually, if I'm sitting in my consulting room and I hear loud noises outside, it may be a person talking on the mobile, but I feel somebody is fighting at the reception counter. And we are not able to handle a crisis situation. So though it is not happening most of the time,
you tend to think like that.
Yes. So that's, I think, something like that, sir. Is that what
exactly? So let me give you an example. Suppose like it's 8 o'clock in the evening and I get a call from the patient that I have so and so problem. I have a fever. It's the second day of surgery, and then the patient says that I have a fever. So the first reaction as a surgeon is the worry of complication, that something can happen with that. So that puts you into such a state of mind that probably that affects your sleep also. So this is probably an abnormal level of anxiety.
That again, I wouldn't say we ignore it. The stress performance graph, a little amount of stress is important because we have to worry. That's why we monitor fever. Otherwise, you would do the surgery and send the person home. So, but to what extent do we worry? We have to always keep the troubleshooting, the information and the guidance. It has to always be ready. That if there is this much fever, then we will start this antibiotic.
I think again, madam is saying, watch our thoughts. No, madam, I think we have to
watch your thoughts, because that stress isn't getting you anywhere. So I'm saying, what is that stress doing? If you know that this is likely to happen, in fact, I don't need you to get that call. I think the protocol should be set. If the pulse is rising and the temperature is rising, means we obviously know that we're getting an infection. And then we need to control it. And then we'll see SOS, what we'll do and what antibiotic and what anti-inflammatory. That means mentally, the way you are geared to battle an infection. Likewise, you should be, that preparedness for stress should be there. And that is where your thinking errors, that if something goes wrong, so you're putting should, the person should not get fever after surgery. Yes, ideally the person should not get fever. But what if the person is immunocompromised? What if there is something else? It's not always your fault. You are taking it personally and maybe you're getting anxious. I think the patient's relative would also be getting a sleepless night, not just you, because they are worried about losing their patient, or the patient will not get sleep because am I going to get an infection? It's just going to be a gangrene. If they are aware and if they are informed. So they might worry about that. Patient post cardiac surgery, the family is worried. So catastrophic thinking, imagining the extremes, happens to everyone. So we just have to calm our mind, and actually I've given tips and techniques in the book how to not overgeneralize. That's why this book is pretty much for any and everyone and for any and every situation also. Because when you think of black and white thinking, you think of generalization, you think of taking things too personally. It's all, whether it's a family situation or it's a interaction with another person, a patient, it's all rooted in your thinking errors. And when you start thinking untwisted, when you start thinking rightfully without the dysfunctional beliefs or the B, which makes you feel the consequence C, you won't feel that consequence. And then you won't be anxious. I wouldn't say that the patient is really high fever and the patient will be shifted to ICU and you will sleep peacefully. But I would still say, if you don't sleep peacefully that night, who's going to take care of the patients the next day? So that is also important. So
So you're saying in your book, beware of overgeneralization trap both ways.
Don't overgeneralize the positive or the negative.
Exactly. This is exactly where we are in the discussion right now, what you are saying.
You know my book, Pit Pat.
नहीं, वो chapter मैंने पढ़ा इस बार यार.
This anxiety is because of the catastrophizing effect, or it's because of the something else?
No, you tell me. If you tell me you had 8 cups of black coffee and you're feeling restless, then
Oversensitive amygdala. Right, madam.
Oversensitive amygdala. Yeah. But just to give sir that perspective, if you take 6 cups of black coffee or a shot of caffeine and you get anxious, then I will not call it your thoughts.
Absolutely.
Then it's biological. But if you're getting anxious because the patient is not okay and you think that the patient may not survive, it is a possible reality.
Sir, मैं book से पढ़ता हूँ sir. उन्होंने लिखा है, when you catastrophize, you think negatively about your nature, character, abilities, ideas, opinions, relationships, jobs, possessions, creations, body, as well as other people and the world. The perceived lack of your personal capacities, perceived lack of your personal capacities makes it difficult for you to keep your head above the water, making you feel like you're drowning. Stressors could very often seem uncontrollable, but stressing over them can be controlled. So I think again it is the triggering events are not going to stop. We have to keep watching our thoughts and behavior.
And our reactions, yes, and our thoughts and reactions in response to these triggering events.
How to make a habit of it? She has already told us we have to come to unconscious
competence. First,
yeah.
you realize how you're incompetent. So if you see that your 5 of your friends met and, you're seeing some photo on Instagram or social media, but they didn't call me. So your instant reaction, am I not their friend?
Yeah. No, you forget social media. In our field, it will happen that if there's a conference and I'm not the faculty, oh God, this time I'm not the faculty. I'll call Dr. Dhiren sir, मेरा भी number आने दो, मुझे भी कभी बुलाओ as faculty.
Yeah. So is it a comparison, or like say all the time we are comparing ourselves with others, and is that a problem? Or
because we
it's a fear of being forgotten.
I am successful only if I'm faculty, because if I was important enough, I would be called. See, a little bit, obviously, I am also thankful that you invited me to be a speaker here. So it is a little flattering, but we all get opportunities and then we work hard, no? I mean, when I was called for a TED talk, I was very happy. Okay, I gave a TED talk. But otherwise, yeah, I think before that, I was just thinking, I haven't been invited for a TED talk. Now I feel एक TED talk हो गया, भी एक book लिख लिया. We feel we've set these little milestones for ourselves. And if you've set that milestone and you've accomplished it, it's good. If you don't accomplish it, it's still fine.
That's most important. So you get called as a faculty, it's good. And if you don't get called as faculty, enjoy the conference.
Exactly.
Yeah, but Tushar, it's very easily said, but when it comes to application, that's really the challenge.
But that, Dr. Dhiren, you will read the entire book and you will say, Dr. Shefali easy said. I agree. Easy, not easy said, easier said than done. But that doesn't mean.
But it is necessary. I'm starting to feel it's extremely necessary.
Just because it's difficult, it doesn't mean that we can't do it. So
and most important, it is necessary. I think like what you mentioned, when we have an abrasion, we are dressing it. So if we are having a mental abrasion, it's better we dress it or address it. Rather than dress it, address it.
After the fracture, if the patient refuses to do physiotherapy, you have done the best fusion. But how is the power going to come? You think it is easy. When the person is in pain, it's not easy.
Exactly. Great example, actually. Yes.
So then, easier said than done. I had 8 hand surgeries. I had 3 trigger releases and 2 carpal tunnels, and all in a span of one. Every year, I was getting cut off.
And you don't recover fast from it, right? Everyone doesn't recover very rapidly.
I am type 1 diabetic, so I don't heal also. So, and now a lot of muscle wasting. But the point is, I would, Dr. Bijlani is my doctor, so I would call him and I would say, but it's hurting. So he's saying surgery hua dard to hoega, I mean, it's logic, and he said it in a very logical way. I said, I understand that, but it's easier said than done. No, you just move your hand. I said, but I can't move it. It's hurting. No, but you have to move it. So like that, even you tell, us, I mean, an orthopedic tells me, and I'll say easier said than done. And likewise, I'm telling you, and you're saying easier said than done. But in the whole world, it's always easier said than done. So
I think, sir, वो बहुत अच्छा हो गया. Physical wounds require dressing, mental wounds require addressing.
Right. Yeah.
You have to address it.
We are coming to the end. So I would just like to ask a very broad question that can we do something particularly for the school-going children to develop this type of thinking? Because the problem is that we are never taught about this. Even as a doctor, we are not taught about the psychology or like this CBT concept.
Yeah, you are asked to cope with it. You are expected that you will automatically to do it.
What we need to really address, if I can, within the 1 or 2 minutes that are left, is the PIG, the PIG, problem of immediate gratification. What we're facing a lot in our kids is impulsivity. And they need that instant gratification. Why did my friend not say that I'm special? Why did I not get that prize? Today, every kid in a school is beginning to get a prize. That 100 kids, one is the best artist, one is the best sketcher, one is the best in this trait. Everybody, if they don't get a prize, they're not okay. That gratifying urge is too high, and it is building a sense of entitlement. And it's also causing another thing called LFT, low frustration tolerance. That if it doesn't go my way, I can't take it. So that is why when this kid doesn't get the marks, they can't take it. When they don't get into the highest, university, then they can't take it. But I get it. Everybody can't get in everywhere. Some of us get in, some of us don't. But we have to learn to accept that acceptance is not there. That fine, 3 friends went out, they didn't want you part of the group. I don't know whether you said something. Maybe those 3 friends are selfish. They don't want you part of the group. Let go. But kids haven't realized that they've got that sense that I should get whatever I want. And I cannot be okay if I don't get what I want. That is the big problem. I think in kids, maybe we need to get into schools and address these issues, talk about it, and, work ways on building, let's call it, have a psychological flexibility session for kids. Because we do yoga, so likewise, along with the yoga class, you should do a psychological flexibility talk. Schools need to become a little more aware. And maybe in our kids' schools, even as doctors, or grandchildren, that we should address and, go ahead and speak to faculties about this.
So this would be something like a vaccination. We always try to give vaccine so that we prevent the major problem. The same thing, all such sessions or the education is basically a vaccine against the
Cognitive
major.
restructuring.
Sir, I need to ask her one question before.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
You know, last time it didn't. So we had a speaker who has a book written on optimism. And I asked her, she has a lot of articles published on role of religion in being optimistic. And her articles, what conclusion I could draw from those big articles is that religious people are more optimistic. What is your take on religion and religious practices as a surrogate, as a sort of a surrogate for being mentally more sound?
Or is it like that the religion make them more resilient? Would it be like that?
I would like to just add, see, most religious philosophies, because I am aware, because we meet so many people and we're in touch with people from all societies, and I've lived abroad, so different cultures, Asian, Taiwanese, just in touch with everyone. It really, I would say, religion is just a way of life. It's not really about a specific guru or a specific idol or a specific god that you worship. Most religions definitely teach a common philosophy to do good, to be calm, to be giving, to be forgiving. I think it goes as a trait, unless we take it to a fanatic end, which we'll just assume that the religion that we're talking about is at surface level. I mean, at the not being too absolutist, but there, the word religion always builds a faith. When you have faith in a particular God, you have faith in a particular belief, the fact that you have faith, that itself is a positive fact, that you can at least believe in something. So it is said that the person who has faith in their religion will have faith probably in the doctor, and will have faith in the therapist, and will have faith in the surgeon, because they believe in something. If you don't believe in anything, at least you can believe in your God or your Lord or your Guru.
Almighty, or yeah.
So that is where the concept of being religious is about having faith. And the moment you have faith, so anxiety on a very different perspective is lack of faith. Depression on that perspective is lack of faith in yourself. So that is where I think, answering your question, that religion is primarily.
तो मतलब जब हम बोलते हैं भगवान सब कुछ अच्छा करेंगे, कर्म करते जाओ, बल्कि इच्छा मत रखो. These are all religious ways of explaining.
Correct.
The modern
what we say, yes, is we quoted a bit of Bhagavad Gita off and on already. By saying that Chitta Pragya is also Bhagavad Gita.
So, like, do your work without expectations. That's what.
Correct. Like, lower your expectations, I would say, of yourself also, of the world also, of other people also. That doesn't mean that be substandard, but expect and aim for the best. But if you don't get it, you're not the worst, and it's not the end of the world. So,
sir, ये best है, black and white thinking. Live in the gray world. अपन 50 shades of grey नहीं बोल सकते, but black and white thinking.
है तो million shades of grey, but
million shades
में कौन से shade में कितना magnify करोगे pixel by pixel? It's many shades, but at least know that everything that's not white is not black.
Yes. Sir, would you like to?
Yeah, so Dr. Shefali, thank you very much for sharing your vast experience and wisdom and experience with us. And I'm sure that this will be the first step. And in 1 hour, we can't learn everything. So I hope that, and I also request you to have subsequent session on a different topic. Sure. And more discussion will definitely make us to, or help us to understand and implement this concept.
And sir, you should get the book. It's on Amazon, all over India and the world.
So, Tushar has praised it so much. Definitely, I will order it tomorrow.
Yeah. It's, I must say, guys, whoever is listening, it's easy read. You honestly, the title says sad, but I think people in all frames of mind should read it, and it also helps addressing our patients' problems to sort of understand from where they come, and also equip us with the lingo and the right word to sort of guide them. So it sort of makes it more scientific. So I would suggest that most of us should be having the book. You don't like reading hard copies, it's available on Kindle. You can buy the soft copy. But I think we should all have it. It's great value for money. And it's selling very well. I know the publisher. She's a friend of mine. So she was
Oh,
saying,
really?
yeah,
Okay.
she
I
said
think
she's doing
you should give me some more to the publisher keep the secret.
well. Because I was speaking to her. She's a patient. She happens to be, the family happens to be a patient of mine. That's how I'd come to know about the book. So she says, yeah, it's doing well.
Okay,
So
good.
soon we'll be seeing it all over the airports and everywhere. Right.
Okay, and so thank you once again for joining with us, and we
you.
wish you all the happiness to everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Right,
Thanks a
Ashok.
lot.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
And
Thanks,
Thank you.
Shefali. Thanks.
thank you.